Mattel sent me Wave 2 of the 30th Anniversary Edition Street Sharks. So we're going to take a look at all of them as a group. Can I first start off by saying this box is just fantastic. I thought the first box that they sent over for Wave 1 was great, but the second Wave box takes the cake by far. The reason for that is because not only does the shark fin look amazingly cool, and when you open up that shark fin, the insert inside has all of the Street Shark logos just plastered all over. It looks very 90s. The attention to detail in these drops has just been phenomenal. So I don't know what we're waiting for. Let's get into these figures and take a look. As you can see, they are carrying on the packaging for this. You have the action features, which you can activate from the back of the figure, and it just allows you to play with the action features before you decide to buy. This is something carried over from the first wave, which was carried over from the initial run of Street Sharks. We have to talk about the first wave of Street Sharks before we get into Wave 2, just because of how well it was done. For the good guys, you had Ripster and Jab, and then you also, for the bad guys, had Slash. These were faithful recreations of the initial run of Street Sharks with one important difference. They upgraded just about all of the play features and articulation with these characters. I couldn't say enough good things about them in the initial video, and then San Diego Comic-Con happened. We got a re-release of sorts of Ripster, but this time he was from a very specific episode of Street Sharks. We had a leather jacket and a pool cue and some sunglasses, just to try to fit in with a biker gang. So not only did we have a great Wave 1, we had a very great special edition figure from a Comic-Con, and now we have to look at Wave 2 just because of it continues this trend. I can already see it through the packaging. Let's take each figure out of its box, I guess cage rather, individually talk about them, and then I will give you my whole thoughts on Wave 2, and then where we are with the overall 30th anniversary of the Street Sharks. As mentioned with the first wave, this is a hard plastic cage that they come in. Do with that what you will. I'm gonna save one of these, and again, I've got one from the first wave so that I've got some cages in case we want to display these in any sort of fun or unique or interesting ways. Let's start with Streex because he is one of just the most 90s of the Street Sharks, if that makes any sense. So he has these giant neon claws. He's wearing rollerblades, which the wheels do spin. The wheels spin on this guy, which that is fun, right? So you can have actual wheeling action with Streex. Now, just like the other Street Sharks, he has this rubber skin over the main body of him. The arms, the legs, the feet, they are all harder plastic. And then what we have as accessories for him are these longer claws. So how do we do that? Let's do that right now. Let's take off his right hand. It's a very nice big peg. Took a little bit of effort to get off, which is something that we want to see. We don't want it just to fall off, but we don't want it to be impossible to get off. And then we're going to put this corresponding hand on there, and we will see what that looks like. Again, we have a little resistance here. I'm waiting for that satisfying pop, and I'm almost there. There we go. So we got to get that satisfying pop in. It kind of clicks, but you'll know when you feel it. And then we also have this nice shoulder swivel and hinge out so that he does have some motion with those claws. The waist does swivel, which is a nice feature to have. So he can not just have to be looking forward when he's rollerblading, he can be doing other things as well. What I like about Streex here, the color scheme behind him. Very vibrant, very fun. And not only do we have the very true to original 30 years ago version of Streex, but we have that added articulation that comes in the form of his wrist, it comes in the form of an elbow, and we have some movement in the legs and the shoulders, all that kind of stuff that contribute to making this version of Streex the best version of Streex I think that has ever existed. So his secondary feature, because if you remember, most of these Street Sharks have one or two action features. So his first action feature is, of course, having the longer nails, the claws, and then the second one is the standard chomping up and down of the shark mouth. Let's say that Streex also has a third with these moving wheels. I wasn't expecting the wheels to move, but here we are. That was fun. That was a fun little feature. This is a great figure. I've always liked Streex. Again, he is the personification, or the sharkonification. Is that a word? It's a word now, of the 90s with the rollerblades, the neons, the catchphrases, all of that. This has got to be my favorite one out of Wave 1 and 2 so far. Setting apart the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, but just mainline figure, Streex is my favorite so far. We will see if he gets dethroned by Big Slammu or Dr. Paranoid. I don't know yet, because this is the first one I've taken a look at, and overall, he is phenomenal. They're doing such a good job with this. Let's work our way over to the bad guy side of the aisle. Here's Dr. Paranoid. Of course, he has the rotating face that goes back and forth. Got such a nice little satisfying pop, and it locks into place. If I'm thinking back of the original Dr. Paranoid, I don't think it was so snappy. I think there was like a little bit of, you could get him in an in-between state or something like that. And maybe I'm misremembering things, but this one feels so much better where you push the button, it clicks, and you see the head swivel. We have the added articulation here. So he has that elbow joint with this big giant fish hook, or I guess shark hook. He has some shoulder kick out as well. This isn't just a straight up and down thing, which you would assume from a character with this much plastic at the top here. This is a hulking character here. And then we also have, believe it or not, articulation with his mechanical arm. So this thing right here can move all the way around. It just swivels. And then this is his harpoon, and it will shoot. So I'm going to try to catch it here so I don't have to go chasing it. But yes. Whoa! I'm going to have to go get that. But you see that the harpoon does have some pop to it. And then if we look at the knees, they do bend. There is some ankle play as well. And if we take a look all the way around him, just fantastic detail. He is not a boring character by any stretch of the imagination. He is a very visually interesting bad guy. Oh, and then I forgot one thing. He does have a hinge up here. So I wasn't expecting to have any sort of upper torso movement at all, but here we go. It just moves so well for a figure that in my mind is like a 30-year-ago figure. They have put so much love, attention, care, and detail into these Street Sharks that, I mean, they're really knocking it out of the park here. All right, I've retrieved the harpoon. Let's set it back in there. It clicks nicely into place. As you see here with the hinge at the elbow, there is a tube here that has just enough give in it that allows you to not be impeded by this detail that they wanted to include on this figure. I know I said Streex is my favorite. I think he still is, but Dr. Paranoid is giving a lot of run for the money here. Not just with the very different stature of this action figure, but with all of the play features that come with it. He's got an accessory that you can remove. This does remove. I didn't even mention that yet, but you can get this shark hook out of his hand, and he can just have a normal hand. And this could be taken by one of the other bad guys or one of the good guys. Doesn't really matter. I thought I was going to have a little more difficult time taking it off and on, but there is this slim bar that he can hold on to, and it just sockets right around his wrist. And if I wanted to, I can move the wrist, I can twist it, and it kind of stays with it. I wouldn't say it goes great when you've got the elbow articulation, but if you have it down or even under the elbow, that's when you're going to have the best success with this fish hook, shark hook. Wave 1 could have just been the first best effort, but it seems like they are really putting that same effort into Wave 2 here with the Street Sharks. We have one more to go. Big Slammu, let's go grab him. Big Slammu, here we go. And of course, the first thing we have to do is chomp his teeth up and down. The second feature is the arm, and the arm slams down. What is great about this version of Big Slammu is he has the added articulation, so I can move his elbow all the way around and give some different types of fist slams. So I can just have a big straight arm come down as a big hammer, or we can have it drop an elbow. He's very wrestler in that sense. And while Streex doesn't have that, he has the hands. This action feature complements the other brother sharks as well. Now the other hand here is just kind of a closed claw fist, and it does articulate, it does bend. We have some movement in the legs. He does have some of the shortest legs of any of the Street Sharks. He's a much stockier figure. And yes, of course, he does swivel at the hips as well, so that he's got that going for him. As strong as this figure is, he's probably my third favorite in this wave, with Streex being number 1. I think fueled by nostalgia mostly, I'll admit that. Dr. Paranoid for just being an incredible figure with a ton of detail. considering the way that he is sculpted, the way that he is constructed. In Slammu, we have that action feature that is augmented, or I would say elevated, with the ability to articulate his right elbow. So I've got all 3 of the Wave 2 Street Sharks out of the box. I've told you my rankings of them. Again, it's kind of hard to choose because they are all so well done. But let's talk about Wave 1 versus Wave 2 a little bit. I would say, personally, I like Wave 2. I think they've improved upon the formula from the initial wave of the 30th anniversary edition of Street Sharks. There was a high watermark already set, and Wave 2 has surpassed that. And I wish I could come up with more ocean and water-based puns for Street Sharks, but I think I'm kind of running dry. And having both waves together, I think really shows just how lovingly done these 30th anniversary editions of the characters are, as well as just the cohesiveness of the line. There isn't a very clear distinction of like, okay, Wave 1 we're trying something a little new, Wave 2 we're improving upon it. I think there is a nice gradient. And when it comes to Big Slammu, because we do have a direct comparison of the initial Street Sharks run, my only remaining original Street Shark there is, well, you can just see how much an improvement 30 years has been to the Street Sharks. As I was saying earlier in the video, these Street Sharks, the new ones today, are what we remember as kids 30 years ago playing with the Street Sharks. It is just so cool to see that taken from the ether and put into articulated plastic the way that it has been. The 90s nostalgia-fueled trip that the Street Sharks deliver is very strong. It is very potent. But there is also good action figure material here to sink your teeth into. And if this level of quality, this level of care, attention to detail, and love poured into the existing waves gets carried through, well, I think we're going to see a lot of great things coming from the Street Sharks that, while yes, are partly nostalgia, they're also just really good toy making. So if you have any questions about the Wave 2 Street Sharks, please let me know in the comment section. If you like this retro-infused look at action figures, you gotta hit that subscribe button, because not only do I talk about action figures, I talk about collectibles, pop culture, blasters, and all kinds of awesome things like that that may or may not be 90s related. So you really owe it to yourself to stick around and see what the next videos might have in store. That's all I know about the Wave 2 of the 30th anniversary Street Shark collection. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.